Welcome, Traceable Designers. In this three-part video, we'll learn how to make the beautiful scalloped Cornice Style valance. We'll learn how to add a contrast fabric layer to your valance panels, and then we'll finish with the beautiful and very simple, easy to make single panel style for a straight rod. Let's begin with the Cornice Style. You'll need your scalloped valance design form from your Traceable Designer kit. Cut away the excess from the bottom of your valance design form to reveal the shape. Your valance design form includes sizing lines. The upper section is used to make rod hanging pockets, and the side panels are made using the outside line. You also have a small center panel sizing line or a large center panel sizing line, and then you have contrast panel sizing lines for insert fabric. Your custom valance design guide includes step-by-step information for creating all three of the custom valance styles. Each section repeats for each style, so you will begin by identifying the proper style that you're interested in making, and then you measure your window and add a couple of inches to the sides. Then simply slide down to find your proper size and determine which size panel, whether small or large, best fits your window. We'll be covering all of the information from the scallop section. Make sure you check out the other videos for the arched and straight styles. Starting with the center panel, position your sizing line on the folded fabric edge, and then just cut out a fabric section that has excess around the edges. Then you'll open your fabric and make sure the back side is facing up, and then just iron out all of the wrinkles. Pull out your fusible fabric backing, making sure that the glue side is facing down and the paper side is up, and then just cut a piece of fusible backing to fit the back side of your fabric, making sure that you have an edge around about a ½ inch all the way around all of the edges. You'll notice that the fabric backing is 17 inches, so you're probably going to have to cut off a little bit of excess from the bottom. You can use that for your trim later on. Center your sized fusible fabric backing and beginning in the middle with a dry iron with a sweeping motion out toward the sides, secure your fusible backing to the back of your fabric, making sure you get all of the outside edges very well. Once it's completely cooled, peel back the paper, trying to keep it in one large piece, and then you're going to reserve that. You'll use that when you attach your trim to the edges. Cut a piece of lining large enough to extend beyond all of the edges. Adding the lining to the back of your fabric will take about 5 minutes, so take your time. You start in the middle with a dry iron sweeping out toward the sides. You don't want to hold the iron in one place very long, and just sweep to the sides until you get that completely secured. Do not overheat the fabric because you will deactivate the glue. So just complete that, making it secure around all of the edges. Then fold your fabric section in half with the lining side facing out. Make sure it's very straight, and then just place a pin in the outside area to keep it secured. Position the design form desired sizing line on the folded fabric edge, making sure that you've left space above for your height marker. And then at the top panel edge marker, just starting on the outside, simply trace around the design form carefully, following the shape all the way underneath, around and around down to the side. Then we have to adjust our height marker. So we just slide that down so that we are where we started with the first mark, and then simply trace across the top edge of the design form to indicate the panel height. To cut out your center panel, turn it so that the folded side is facing you, and then carefully follow along your traced line, pressing down with your hand to make sure it stays flat against the table, and then just follow the cut line with long sweeping motions all the way around until you've cut out your valance. Flip it around and make sure the cut side then is facing you, and then follow the top line to remove the excess height. Then open your cutout panel and then turn it over, and then with an iron just run it over the back to make sure that all of the edges are completely secured. Now let's make our side panels. So again, we're going to size this fabric section, making sure we have excess area above the rod hanging pocket section, and then you'll just cut off some excess from the outside. You don't need all the fabric, but you do need an excess area around the outside edges. Again, flip the fabric over and make sure you iron out all of the wrinkles. Go ahead and pull out your fusible fabric backing. You're going to position this on the back side of this fabric section. But you're going to do this one a little different. You're going to leave area above the fusible fabric backing for your rod pocket. So this needs to be positioned so that the design form has area above. So you'll move that fabric backing down far enough so that you make sure you have excess area above. And then if it's a little long for your fabric, just cut off the little piece on the bottom and reserve that for your trim. So then you can reposition the design form, making sure the lined fabric positioning marker is straight across the top of the fusible backing. And then when that's cool, just pull that paper off and again reserve that for later. Cut out a piece of lining, making sure it's very straight across the top, and you'll position that even with the top edge of the glue and make sure that the lining does extend beyond all the other edges of the fabric. Then beginning in the middle, making sure that remains straight, start in the center, sweeping out toward the sides until you've secured all of the lining to the back of the fabric. Fold the fabric section in half with the lining side facing out and make sure that it is very even across the top so that the lining matches up, and then just place a pin in the outside to hold it in place. Position the design form on the selected sizing line and make sure the lined fabric positioning marker is straight across the top of the lining. Beginning on the outside at the upper lining edge, just trace around your design form the same as you did for the center panel. Slide it down, and then you're going to create a rod hanging pocket. So you're going to trace across the top and down the side so that you have the rod pocket area identified for when you cut out your panel. Again, turn the fabric section with the folded edge facing you, and then just follow your traced line. Begin with pinning the top area so that that doesn't move, and then follow your line with long sweeping motions around and carefully cut out your side panel valance, and then up the side and across the rod pocket area. Turn the cut side toward you, and then just remove the excess from the top section of the panel. Use an iron across the crease so that you can more easily see where you're going to be cutting. Remove the pin, and then when you open up the panel section, you're going to cut that right down the middle to make mirrored side panels. So you'll cut up the center and across the rod pocket area. These two side panels will be used as your side panels for your Cornice Style Valance, and you're going to be creating a rod hanging pocket on both sides. You want to make sure you have some space there between the fold over and the lining, and then you'll cut a piece of fusible fabric backing probably about 2 3/4 inches wide. You don't want to overlap where the lining section is. Fuse that down. When it's completely cooled, then you'll just peel back the paper, and then you'll create your hanging pocket. So fold that over nice and tight and even and straight. Make sure that that is completely straight. Then just iron it down. Take your time. This will take a while because you want to make sure that's 100% secured so it doesn't come apart. So you have your rod hanging pocket. Okay, because I used the small sizing line, I'll have a little bit of a point on the side so you can see when that curves around. You may see behind. So we're just going to cut that off. You don't need to do that when you're using the large sizing line. So you'll measure up about 1 inch, and then you'll just place a mark there. Then you'll pull back out your design form and then position it right in the corner, curved up toward your 1 inch mark, and then just trace off that point. And then you're just going to cut that off so it hangs a little more straight around the side return. As you can see with the removed point, when you curve your side panel against the wall, it won't show. Okay, it's time to attach our edge trim. I'm using a very simple GIMP trim, a 3/8 inch wide trim, because it's very easy to secure. It goes on easily. And then just follow the outside edge of your panel, making sure you have plenty of excess trim before you cut your section. And then pull out that reserved paper with the shiny side facing up so it doesn't stick. And then let's turn our trim into fusible trim. So run it under your iron to get it nice and flat. You want to make sure that it's easy for that to attach. Then pull out that reserved backing and then just cut long strips, as many as you need, to cover the back side of your trim. And then starting at the edge with the glue side facing down, just slowly move along, attaching the paper to the back of the trim. You'll make sure the glue side is down so it doesn't stick to your iron, and then just follow along until it's completed. It's really a lot easier than it looks, and it moves pretty quickly. So just follow along until that's complete, and then let that cool completely before you peel the paper back to attach to your valance. If you're right-handed, I suggest starting on the right side, left hand, left side, and then just fold it behind the top edge and hold the iron over top to let that start to warm up and secure. It does secure pretty easily. You don't want to overheat your trim or it will deactivate the glue. So as you move along, it starts to warm up. You can reposition the trim as often as you'd like while it's warm. So with the sweeping motion, just follow around the edges, making sure that you get it nice and curved inside of the corners, and continue until you've completely secured the trim all around your valance, and then secure it behind the left side to hide the ends of the trim. Okay, now we have to add our trim to our side panel, so you'll follow the same process that you did for the center panel. You can also use a spare piece of lining to press the trim down when it's hot so you don't burn your fingers. So just press that as you go along, same as you did for the center panel. And then when you get to the straight side, the wall side, secure it underneath, and then as that warms up you can pull that a little bit taut to make sure it's really straight against the side wall section there, and then just fold it under on the top and secure it. Okay, it's time to prepare our valance panels for hanging. So pull out your Velcro. You're going to use the soft side of the Velcro on the upper edge of the center panels, and you're just going to cut that 2-inch piece in half, and then you'll add a 1-inch section of fusible fabric backing along the upper section, the upper edge. Just fuse that down, and then once that paper is completely cooled, you'll peel that back to expose the glue. Remove the paper from the back of your Velcro, and this will stick really fast, so don't let anything glue together while you're pulling that paper off. And then just pull it taut and position it over top of the glue, and then just press that down, making sure that you're really careful here because that will stick immediately and it will not move. To help the panel lay flat when it hangs, just fold down and iron across the top. You'll be adding the hard Velcro to the back side of both of the center panels on the curved side, not the wall side. So cut a 1-inch strip of fusible fabric backing and position that at the upper inside area. Iron that across. When that cools, peel off the paper, and then add the hard side of the Velcro on each side panel. Now you'll just detach your center rod, and you will have that taped so it doesn't move. Then you take the hard side of the Velcro with a 2-inch piece and insert that inside the back of the rod, and then you just simply slip your side panels right onto your rod with the straight edge facing out. Fold your center panel over your rod and attach to the back of the rod and the side panels, and you'll be ready to hang your beautiful scalloped Cornice Style valance. Okay, it's time to move on to part 2, adding a contrast fabric layer. There are 2 ways to add a contrast fabric layer to your center valance panel. One is to use the sizing line on the design form, which will create a smaller panel. Just use the insert panel lines, and then just cut out a panel that will fit in the center. Or if you prefer a completely uniform curve, you'll cut a panel that is exactly the same size and then remove the excess from the outside edges. Prepare the fabric for your center panel. I'm using the small sizing line, and trace and cut out that panel fully lined. And then, because you don't need to waste fabric, you can cut a smaller piece of fabric, but make sure it stays on the exact same sizing line, in this case the small center panel, and then leave the paper on the back of that cut out panel and then pin that so you hold it in place. Now what we're going to do is we're going to cut off the outer edge. So you'll measure as much as you want as a margin and then just mark that. Then pull out the design form and line it up so it's going to be a nice curve, and then you're just going to trace that, and then you'll cut that section off. So once you've raised your center panel, that will match on both sides. You can cut a little at a time and then double check to make sure you like it. So you can see the curves match up perfectly. Then once you have finished sizing the way you want it, then peel off the paper and position it, and then make sure you pull out measuring tape and make sure everything is nice and uniform and even, matching up on all sides. Then iron that to the center panel, flip it over, and then cut off the excess, and then you'll want to just cover it with the iron again to make sure it's nice and secure. Now prepare and attach your trim, measure off the inside and the outside, and then when you're adding your inside trim, you're going to be ironing on top of your fabric, so use a piece of lining to cover the fabric to avoid burning, and don't overheat your trim or it will deactivate the glue. So I'm using a thinner trim on the inside and then a 5/8 inch trim on the outside for a little more weight. And then your valance will be ready to prepare and hang. Okay, time for part 3, the very easy single panel valance. I'm making a holiday version. This is something that is very easy to make, and you can switch it out with your favorite holidays. You'll hang this on a straight decorative curtain rod, and you will need an exact measurement. So you'll measure your window and add an inch or two past the frame. My window's 40 inches, so I'll be using the 20-inch sizing line when positioned on the fold. You will be making an upper rod pocket, and that's going the entire distance of the valance, just like you made the side panels, but you will do one long rod pocket. Position your fusible fabric backing, making sure there's plenty of room above for your rod pocket, and then you'll just adjust that if it's hanging too low on the bottom so it fits on your fabric. Iron that down, starting in the middle with a sweeping motion, and then once that is completely cooled, peel off that paper to expose the glue. Reserve the paper for your trim. Cut a piece of lining with a very straight upper edge to fit across the top edge of the glue, and make sure that the rest of it extends past all of the sides. And then starting in the middle, fuse your lining down to make sure that's nice and secure. Fold it in half and pin it. Make sure you pin on the side and the top, and just check to see that your lining is completely straight and even. Position your sizing line, mine's the 20-inch sizing line, and make sure that your lined fabric positioning marker is very even across the top of the lining, and then just trace around your valance form all the way down to the point, and then move it down and trace across the top and across the side. You will be making one long rod hanging pocket, so that will straighten that out across the top. Once that is traced, turn the folded side toward you, and following that traced line, cut very long sweeping motions around, holding your fabric down as you cut. Cut up along the rod pocket area, flip it around with the cut side facing you, and then just remove the excess right across the top. To make your rod hanging pocket, turn the pocket area toward you and fold that fabric in half. You want to iron that down, but make sure you don't overlap the lining. Then measure off a 2 3/4 inch section of fusible fabric backing to go across the pocket. If you don't have a piece long enough, cut a couple of pieces and just connect them together. So you iron that down, making sure not to overlap the lining section. And then once that has completely cooled and you've got that nice and even, then you'll just peel off your paper, making sure when you pull the first section off that you peel it carefully so that you don't remove the glue. Take your time there. Remove that completely, and then fold over your long rod hanging pocket. Make sure that's very straight and even, and then just iron that down. That takes a little while. You want to make sure it's really secure because you don't want your pocket to come apart when you're hanging your valance. Since you use the sizing line that's generally used for side panels, it's a little bit longer. So if you like your valance a little shorter, just hang it and check it out. And if you want a little length off, just remove that by tracing the form. Prepare your trim like explained in the earlier video, and then just iron that along your edges, curving around the sides all the way around, making sure that's nice and curved in the corners. And then just secure the loose end behind the back side, and your valance will be ready to hang. You'll have a nice long rod hanging pocket to slip your rod inside and then hang your beautiful holiday valance. Thank you for joining me, Traceable Designers, and remember, you can always make your mark with Traceable Designer.